Did I ever tell you how and why I started IT Varsity? So, as much as the story is on our website, I still love telling this story because it's so personal to me. It's a business that I started to solve my own problem. You see, I was coding since 10 years old and I loved coding and I knew that I wanted to make a career out of it. But the only way I knew that I could make a career out of it was to go to university. So I went to university, spent 4 years, 3 years there, and in my final year, I started to look for a job position somewhere, knowing that now my year is going to end and I'm going to be graduating, and so I might as well jump ahead and start looking proactively. But there was a problem. Every time I put out an application, they asked me the same question: what experience do you have? And my response was always, I'm still in university. You don't expect me to have any experience while I'm at university. And they were like, sorry, you need 2 years of experience to get a job with us. So I got caught up in what you call the painful, vicious employment experience cycle, which was that to get a job, to get employment, I needed experience. But where else would I get experience except in a job? So I was caught up in that cycle, and there was almost no way for me to get out of that cycle. It was vicious. And so what I did was I started to just upskill myself on the things that I needed to know in industry, and I realized that what we were taught at university might have been about 4% of what I needed in industry. And so I started to absorb as much knowledge as I could. In the interim, I took a trip to India, and I went to Bangalore, Hyderabad, and I saw the kind of education that was happening there. They would have finishing schools. They would have masterclasses where graduates of universities, people with degrees and master's degrees, would go, and they would learn the skills that they would need for the workplace, basically workplace practical skills. And at these master classes, they would become seasoned developers. And because the work was so intense, they gained enough skill as perhaps a person with 2 years experience. And those master classes were expensive. They weren't cheap. They were really expensive, but people saw the value of them. And the one in particular I found was a really, really good way. It was a Java masterclass, and they really got people ready. So I got the ideas from there, and I bought a ton of books, and I promise you it was a ton almost, because I couldn't put those books in my luggage. I had to put them into boxes and ship them from India. And books are cheap there in India, right? So I went to town. And the moment those books arrived back in South Africa, when I was back, I just poked my nose into them and I dived in learning. I then approached a few organizations, and offered to develop solutions for them for free. And then, they could evaluate me and see if they'd like to keep me on. And there was this one organization in particular that took me on. They took me on my offer. And I started with them, and I worked for them free of charge for a period of time. I think it was 6 months. After which they came up to me. They said, "Well, we like your work. We're going to give you a retainer, put you on a salary." And that was the happiest day of my life. But it wasn't enough to get into a professional software development job. What I did was, I persisted with this organization, and then, along with my CV, I started to send out links to the website that I had built for this organization. And on the strength of that, I got my first interview, and that became my job. So what I'm trying to get at here is that universities are doing us a great disservice. I'm an open critic of the university system, the schooling and the university system. Because 12 years of school plus 4 years of university can't get a person ready for a job in software development, then what is the point? So I had to learn a lot of it myself. But then the seed was already planted while I was in India for an institute in South Africa that focused just on what you need for the workplace, exactly what you need for the workplace, and to prepare people for the workplace. And that's when I started IT Varsity. While I was working in Johannesburg as a software developer, I started IT Varsity in my backyard. It didn't have a name, it didn't have an accreditation, it wasn't a registered business. It was just me teaching people with degrees all the skills that they need, workplace skills. So in essence, I was running a masterclass from my backyard. And that's what grew to become IT Varsity. And up till today, my vision, my dream is that IT Varsity must never, ever fall into the trap of doing education just for the sake of it, or doing education for money. That's all too common. Everybody is doing that. In fact, the reason that IT Varsity initially failed, when I had some investors, my investors were seasoned business people who were running an educational institute, a tertiary institute, which about 4 or 5 years ago they sold for 1 billion South African rands, which is a significant amount of money. Which means to say that they actually built a very, very good, solid business. So I had taken investment from them, and I thought that was a dream come true. Everything went well for 1 year. By the second year, I saw things were falling apart. Why? For a simple reason that their values, and they are great people, right? I'm not running them down. I'm not going to say anything bad. But their values were put the bums on the seats, make the money. My values were absolutely different from that. It was quality and service. Build a reputation on the whole idea of the masterclass, the whole idea of teaching people what is relevant. And so things didn't work out. They wanted to focus on lowering the quality, lowering the prices, get the volumes of people and make the money. I was going in the opposite direction. And so the partnership fell apart, and it was tough. It was very, very tough because I walked away with nothing but debts. But then it gave me a chance to rethink IT Varsity. And it was about that time that online learning was starting to become a lot more popular. And I had the opportunity now to not just rethink my business, but rethink the delivery mode. Because prior to that, we had a face-to-face campus, physical campus. So late 2019, we launched IT Varsity in the fully online version of IT Varsity. I didn't take investor funding from anyone, and I will never take investor funding from anyone ever again. And I made up my mind that I'll do what it takes to bootstrap this business, to start it from the ground up on my own. It was hard. I promise you it was difficult. I had to go and find a full-time job. And alongside the full-time job, I had to build up my business. It took some time. It took about 2.5, 3 years. But then we reached a point where the business was barely making enough to support my living expenses and itself, obviously its own expenses. And so I jumped ship. I left my job, and then I got working in IT Varsity. And we've been growing and growing ever since then. And what's great is because I've been free to run this business as I saw fit, we kept to our vision. We kept to the reason, the core of why IT Varsity was established, which is Masterclasses. Masterclasses meaning not just by name, but classes run by masters in their game, by people with 5, 10, 15 years of experience. Okay, masterclass number 1 was obviously my masterclass because I couldn't afford to get other people to come and make courses. So I made all the courses, and only the courses where I had considerable experience, software development, web design, e-commerce, those kinds of things. But now things are changing. Now things are changing. Now we've built up some capital. We're not out of the woods yet, but we've built up some capital where I'm onboarding others to run masterclasses in their own fields. So for example, I'm not a Python developer. We've got a brilliant youngster now doing Python. The Java guy, the Java instructor, he's got 25 years in the Java space. We've got the guy doing digital photography, 15 years. The lady doing digital marketing, copywriting, 15 years of experience. But you know what's the irony? The irony is that every single one of them have this concern. And their concern is, look, I'm not a teacher. I'm not a lecturer. I'm good at what I do, but I'm not a lecturer. Will I manage this? Now, that's a significant question. It's a very significant concern because these are definitely not seasoned teachers or have had any experience. And they just have mastery over their professions. And so my answer to them was, you are precisely what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for lecturers here. I'm not looking for people teaching out of textbooks. I want you, because you are the one who is going to teach my students exactly what they need in the workplace. That's what I'm after. And in terms of the learning and teaching methodology, that's where I come in. That's where IT Varsity comes in. We will give you the know-how. We will help you to structure your lessons so that it is effective when you are teaching, when you are explaining to your learners. And we will help you instructional design your content into a beautiful, enjoyable course that anybody who does it will thoroughly enjoy. And so these people have joined me now, and I can't wait for this first batch of masterclasses to be released in the next couple of months. It's mind-boggling, really, how good these people are. I mean, I personally handpicked them, and I'm so proud to be associated with them. Some of them are working with me. They are doing work for us. They have been doing work for us for years, and they've proven their abilities. And now it makes me proud that I will be able to make those abilities available to you, to the public, to people out there who want to learn, who are looking to grow in their fields. So that's basically where we started off and where we are and what my vision is going forward. For the next 10 years, that's all we're going to focus on these masterclasses by experts in their fields, by people with a ton of experience who don't know anything about teaching, but who we will support through teaching. And that's important to me because I never wanted and never will want IT Varsity to be one of those that are just there doing education because education makes money or doing education for the sake of it. I mean, we really want to create impact in society, and that's what I'm after. So if you want to grow yourself, you want to learn, and I'm not saying you have to learn, I'm not saying you have to study at IT Varsity. I mean, there are other excellent institutes out there, but I'm going to give you some tips, right? If you want to grow, first and foremost, don't get caught in hype. Don't get caught up in names like an institute has been around for 100 years or 120, and so they are established. That's no indication of how good they are. What is the indication of how good they are is, number one, first and foremost, what is the experience of the instructor? If the instructor is just another lecturer, stay away. Just stay away. You're only going to get theory. You're not going to get workplace skills. The other tip is know thyself. Look, learning is not cheap, and some institutes charge exorbitant rates, and that's the other thing IT Varsity completely goes against. I don't think education should be expensive. I don't think it should be free, right? But I also don't think it should be so expensive, like a 6-week course should cost 16,000 or 20,000 South African rands. I just don't think that there's a justification for that, especially online, with the massive scale that you can do online. So because of the price, know yourself and know what you would want to learn. What are your preferences, what you like, what you dislike. The next thing is to connect with your job. In other words, there's you and then there's your job. What is going to help you to grow within that job? That's very, very important. The other thing is, and this is something I advise all my students, don't follow the crowd. Look for gaps. Look for where the gaps are, the skills gaps. Look for where the emerging industries are and learn skills in that industry, because when it does come up, you'll be one of the pioneers. But if you're going to be like so many people, those who did BCom at university, when I was on campus, we used to call them B-Common, because at one stage doing a BCom was like the best thing you could do. I don't know how good it is now, but a lot of people thought that it was a great career to get into accounts and things like that. So don't follow the crowd. Find the gaps. The next thing is, get used to the paradigm of online learning. Shed those old ideas that you have to sit in a classroom. You've been brainwashed with that idea since school, that there needs to be a teacher, you need to be sitting in front of the teacher, and that's the only way you're going to have discipline. Trust me, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work. If you don't have the discipline to learn on your own, you will not have the discipline to learn in a classroom. Simple as that. The next thing you need to do is look at the level of support that the masterclass gives you, right? If you are able to communicate directly with the instructor, all the better. Or at the very least, if there is an email address or there is a chat group that you can go to and ask questions and get a response, even better. Worst case scenario, at the bottom of the rung is a forum. I mean, if you go to Udemy, you see there's nothing more, there's only a forum. And the best you can do is put a question there and hope somebody's going to answer your question. That's not how you learn. I'm sorry. That's not how anybody learns. If I have a question on something, I ask that question and I expect an answer. And finally, set aside a time and a place for your studies. Wake up 2 hours earlier every morning, 2 hours before you go to work, sit and learn. Have this one section in the house that is especially yours, just for learning. Or go to some place in your office or to a library, somewhere that the moment you sit there, in that specific time and place, your mind automatically goes into learning mode. And with that, just by doing that little hack there, you'll find massive success. Okay, I'm out of time, and it was great catching up with you again. I'm sorry for all the noise. I'm actually outdoors, as you can see, and right in front of the ocean. So there's a lot of ocean noise coming. There's a bit of wind noise, but I'm hoping that this will be clear enough so that you can hear me clearly. Thanks a lot. See you next time. Bye-bye.